Hi everyone, it's Abby here, your host for Community Matters. Welcome to our episode 7, and today again we're talking about COVID and the vaccines and what's been happening in Victoria. So I hope you guys have been keeping well over the last 5 days lockdown, as we call it, the snap lockdown. So at least we're out of it, right? So we're going to have fun tomorrow. Enjoy our weekend coming on. So again, we have Dr. and Professor Sumit Kane joining us for the second part of the show. So let me introduce a little bit about him and then he will join us on the show. Okay, so hang in there. Hello, good evening, Mr. Sumit Kane and Doctor and Professor, whatever the umbrella you fall under. Welcome back to our show.
Thank you for having me in Community Matters again. Lovely to be here.
I think this is our biggest topic so far. So with the recent lockdowns and everything that's happening, I think it's a timely topic as well. So give me a bit of a brief about what's been happening in Victoria lately with the COVID-19.
Well, we've been in a snap lockdown, as you rightly said. Huh?
Yeah.
And we've all been following this on the news. It has something to do with the fact that the virus, being a virus, slipped through our net in the hotel quarantine at the Holiday Inn near the airport. And what we needed to do was contact trace, find out who all have been exposed. And that required us to take a snap lockdown approach. And it seems to have worked. These 5 days of locking ourselves down, we've been able to find out that the virus has probably not spread into the community as we all feared.
Yeah.
And we might just be able to get out.
What the news was saying was that the primary contacts and also the quarantine health workers, as well as primary contacts of those workers and secondary contacts, have been pretty vigilant and have been doing their part. Is that right?
Absolutely. And not only that, we've learned a lot from our last similar outbreak, and our people involved in the contact tracing, and I know people in the DHHS who are busy with it. They've really got it pat on spot on this, and they've been checking, and it's working out just fine so far.
Yeah, I actually personally know because one of my friends' partners in the quarantine workforce, so that he's actually getting tested every day, and his primary contacts are getting tested every second day. So that's a big applause to the contact tracing system, I think.
Totally, and hands down, they've done a good job, and we all have to applaud them. They are really at the front line of all of this. Totally.
And I think considering the quarantine and the amount of influx of people coming in from overseas and the cases involved there, we're doing a pretty good job.
And you know, we know that there are new strains out there which transmit faster.
So that actually takes me to that. So we've been hearing about this new UK strain. What is that? I mean, it's supposedly spreads a lot faster and more airborne, is it?
We don't know about the airborne part for sure, but we definitely know that it spreads faster, and we have seen it spreading really fast all over the UK, many parts of Europe, and it was only a matter of time that the strain would arrive on our shores. So that's what we've seen happening. But the good news
I mean,
is we
it's to
don't.
be expected, isn't it? Because I mean, with all the overseas travelers now coming back again with the borders opening, obviously it's to be expected.
It is to be expected not only because of borders opening, but also because of the nature of the virus. When we control the virus through other means, the virus evolves and more transmissible strains, sometimes stronger strains, sometimes weaker strains, become part of the mix.
Actually,
So,
sorry, Sumit, sorry to interrupt you there. We actually lost sound for a minute there. Can you actually repeat what you just said?
so yeah, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, it's fine now. Yep.
Right. So the thing is, it's not only about the opening of the borders that has led to the coming in of the virus. It's the nature of the virus also, because viruses evolve and they evolve to suit themselves so that they can spread better, they can live better. And this evolution and emergence of new strains is a part of how viruses evolve anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So how effective do you think these current lockdown measures have been for the last 5 days?
The evidence so far, and I've been following what our DHHS and the Premier's office and the Chief Medical Officer's office, um, the briefings they've been giving on a regular basis, it seems that it's been very effective. And as we were saying just now, the credit goes to Melburnians, Victorians, and as much to the people involved in the contact tracing and quarantining activities.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah.
it's been pretty good. Yes.
Even though we're coming out of lockdown tomorrow, we still need to be cautious, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we have instructions that we need to follow, particularly around social distancing, which we've been following all along before this lockdown
Yeah,
came in, and in our earlier lockdowns also. Yeah.
yeah. So I hear we are almost at a stage for the vaccine to roll out.
Yes, and not just one, but we've got two vaccines which are approved
Okay,
for
so
use
give
in.
me the details.
So the TGA, the Therapeutics and Goods Administration, the regulator for all medicines, vaccines in Australia, one of the best regulators in the world, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
approved the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine some weeks ago, and you must have seen in the news that we've got 80,000 odd doses that have arrived in Sydney and that are going to be administered to the first set of recipients. That's the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine. The second vaccine, which was approved, I think, yesterday, day before yesterday, is the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. The capacity to manufacture the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is actually right here in Melbourne, in Australia. So
Amazing.
even that one has been approved. So we are very well on track for the vaccination rollout to happen in Australia. The news from today is that the rollout will begin most likely as soon as Monday.
That's great news indeed. I mean, especially with the outbreak, with the clusters, I think it's a very timely occurrence.
Absolutely, and you point to a very important thing. Uh, the first people to receive the vaccine are going to be people involved in the quarantine activities and the quarantine facilities. Of course, people in the aged care homes, people at the immigration points, and so on. The people who are most vulnerable and the people who are most likely to pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
So we've done the smart thing. They are the first set of people, and of course, people as carers in the aged care homes. They're the ones who will receive it first.
So what are the properties of these vaccines? Like what I mean, I know most vaccines have carry live virus,
Mhm.
but how does these vaccines, are they similar or is there something different about them?
Right. So the two vaccines that we've got so far approved in Australia have very different features. The BioNTech Pfizer vaccine is an mRNA vaccine which doesn't involve the presence of a live virus of any kind. It just works with the genetic material of the virus, and which then uses our body's inherent functions to to elicit an immune response so which can protect us. So that's the BioNTech Pfizer vaccines mRNA-based technology, which is new, fascinating, and as we've seen, very efficacious.
So what you're
The
telling me is that this particular brand or invention of vaccines do not have the live bacteria or the live virus.
the live virus, exactly. The the other one, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, works with a more traditional way of delivering vaccines, the way we've delivered our flu vaccines all along. So we have a, you might call it a carrier virus of sorts, on which the material or the the, the messages related to the new virus, which is the COVID virus, is
Yeah.
laid upon, and then immune response is generated. So very different technologies, but come to your key question, how effective are these vaccines? What are they supposed to achieve, right? And both these vaccines, irrespective of what the news has been, provide almost 100% protection against what matters the most, and that is death and severe illness requiring hospitalization.
Yeah. So
So
it's protecting those. It's focused on protecting those that would really be at high risk of falling very sick.
it protects everybody from falling sick, uh, seriously sick, and it protects everybody 100% from dying from COVID-19.
So, Sumit, we actually have a question from one of our viewers, Aditi. So
Mhm.
she's asked if there are two different strains, how will the vaccination actually end the pandemic? Do we have to wait for another vaccine for the new strain?
I think Aditi has asked a very pertinent question, good question actually. And the evidence so far is that these vaccines are able to protect us from the strains that have emerged so far. Uh, we know from our experience with influenza vaccines, for instance, that as for every season we tweak our vaccines slightly, and then those vaccines are used. Whether that will be the case here, we don't know, and we have
So we
enough
may
time to
potentially
figure it
need
out.
ongoing annual or booster shots in the future. Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't know whether we would need that. We
Okay,
don't know
so
whether we would
that's
need a
still,
different.
we're still researching about that, I guess.
So it depends on many things. How long will the protection from this vaccine last? If it lasts long, if it lasts for 2 years, 3 years, which we are not sure because we are only 1 year into the pandemic and only 6 months into the vaccination development process.
Yeah.
So we will know whether we need follow-on doses or we need a different type of vaccine. But to respond to Aditi's question, these current vaccines provide very good protection against the strains. That's the evidence so far, and our TGA and our health departments are very watchful and vigilant on this, as are TGA-like outfits in other parts of the world, and we'll be constantly watching the kind of protection these vaccines continue to provide for emerging strains.
And also, there's a lot of facts and fictions that we cannot kind of, as the bystanders, as the general public who doesn't
Mhm.
have in-depth knowledge of science, that's involving there. Like, for example, one of my friends said to me the other day that if you get the vaccine, they leave the needle in you, that the needle doesn't come out. I'm like, what? But can you actually put a rest to some of these fictions or stories evolving around vaccines, please?
First things first. No concern, no question, uh, no doubt that anybody has is a stupid doubt, right? If there's even a dash of concern, I think it's best to vocalize it, reach out to people who might understand, and get answers. So if the question is, people will leave the needle in your arm, of course not. Do we leave needles in kids' arms when we give them vaccines? Does anybody leave needles in your arms if you happen to get a flu vaccine. No. So
Or the
definitely not.
chickenpox vaccine. I mean, we do. My son recently got
Exactly.
his HPV vaccine, so
Exactly. That's not how it is. And yeah, we can reassure people that's not going to be happening. Yeah.
are there any other fictions or stories created around these circumstances that you can put a rest to?
You know, every vaccine uh, has the potential to have some kind of side effects, and we know that these vaccines will, when we receive them, will have some side effects. What are the common side effects? That we know from receiving flu vaccines, for instance, in our arms, that sometimes the arms ache. Sometimes the vaccine site becomes red and slightly painful. Some of us respond a little more strongly, and we might get a bit of a fever, right? And we all are different in terms of how we respond to vaccines. And that's what we are seeing here in these vaccines too. In very rare instances, very rare, 1 in a million, that's the figure that I've come across in the science at the moment, does one have serious side effects, and none that can't be managed. And like any vaccine you receive at the doctor's surgery or anywhere, you will be told, if you have so and so and so, do this, take a paracetamol, and you'll feel better. If you have something more serious, go to your hospital. But the evidence so far is these vaccines are very safe. Hundreds of thousands of people have received them in other parts of the world. So, in that sense, Australia benefits from others receiving it first.
Yeah, I think I have a few friends up in America and or
Uh-huh.
Europe that are actually getting the vaccines right now. They're up to their second dose. So I think
Yes,
how the studies conducted with those parts of the world will definitely benefit how we receive it from our end as well. So
exactly.
Aditi actually has another question for you as well. So she wants to thank you for answering her question first of all, but then
Yes.
she wants to know if the virus is spread through human contact, why the kids don't need a mask. So why
Yes. So,
aren't
so
under
the
12s required not to wear a mask?
right. So the there were in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were we were not really sure what the virus did to kids, whether it infected them, whether it infected them enough for them to be able to spread the virus, and so on. And now, with experience over the last 1 year, the evidence is that kids are not good at spreading the virus. They do get it, but they don't fall sick. That they don't fall ill in that sense, and they are also not good at spreading it. So if you're not falling ill, you're not sneezing, and so on and so forth. So they're not good at spreading it. So that's why um, it's not expected that they wear a mask. On top of that, it's not easy to get kids to wear a mask all the time. So I mean, let's be fair. So in that sense, the virus has done us a bit of a favor by not getting the kids to be able to
I think
spread
we
it,
will be in kind of like a selective lockdown if kids were forced to
if
wear
that's fair.
masks.
Yeah. And there are other viruses that the kids spread all the time, which they
Oh
bring
yes.
home. Yes, as parents, all parents know about that. So yeah,
Yeah, we're currently going through the gastro outbreak and such like that. So yes, we are very
yes,
familiar with
exactly,
that. Yeah.
exactly.
So how effective do you think, and kind of like the time frame of what we're looking at the vaccine? So as you mentioned, we have 80,000 doses of the first vaccine passed into Sydney. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So two parts to the question. Maybe I can finish one of the answers that I was giving
Yeah.
earlier. How effective are these vaccines? You said.
Yeah.
So the vaccines are 100% effective, both of them, at preventing death or protecting us from death. That would be the more accurate way to put it, and protecting us from very severe infections which require intensive care and hospitalization, and so on and so forth. Um, there's a difference in the two vaccines in terms of protecting us from getting the infection. And the Pfizer vaccine seems to be better at protecting us from even getting it. The
So
AstraZeneca
you think
vaccine
like
slightly
second
less so.
time around?
Pardon? What did you?
So getting the virus the second time around, like a second.
No, no, no. No, no, no. Even the first time around, getting infected with it. So one
Okay.
vaccine protects more. Yes. So a lot of us in many parts of the world, also here, we can get infected with COVID-19, but we don't have much symptoms. We can have a bit of a scratchy throat, a bit of a mild fever. We don't feel ourselves, and it goes away. So that's also been quite common. So there's a difference in the two vaccines in terms of whether you get that or don't even get that. But both vaccines protect you from getting serious illness and from dying. So that's one bit. So coming to the second part of your question in terms of where are we with the vaccine rollout, in terms of the phases and the stages,
Yeah.
you're right. The first lot of vaccines have arrived. Around 80,000 doses have arrived, and they'll be given in what is being called the stage 1A to quarantine workers, people at immigration,
So
workers at
high risk.
aged care, high risk. Uh, those at high risk of spreading. The 1B are the people who are most vulnerable. So it's going to be rolled out in 4 stages, maybe 5 stages. There's a stage 3. So 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and stage 3. And 1A is the people who are at the front line, and 1B are going to be more the vulnerable, the elderly, those with pre-existing illnesses, and then we work back down uh, to lower ages, uh, and ultimately those who are in their 30s and their 40s and their 20s come last.
And the second vaccine, how are we going with that? You said it's manufactured in Melbourne itself.
Right. So it's we have the CSL laboratories here, one of the big vaccine manufacturing companies in the world. They have their factories in Melbourne, Victoria, and other parts of Australia, I think. And what has happened is our government has pre-bought, pre-ordered, if you may, a whole lot of these vaccine doses. So we have the capacity here in Australia to manufacture, and we are likely to get them quickly. So I expect our rollout to happen uh, fairly fast. We don't have a clear timeline that the government has uh, already laid out, but I expect it to happen fast. We are a small country compared to many other countries in the world in terms of number of people, only 25 million odd people. So yeah.
So, looking at the global response to the vaccine, as well as the, first lot of frontline workers getting their doses and so on and so forth, I think
Mhm.
public will have more of an information on what the response levels are, how your body's working, and how effective the vaccines are. So, you can get it with a clear mind.
Oh, absolutely. I think you make a very important point. Uh, this is one of the advantages of us having done so well as a people, as Australians, in managing the lockdowns, preventing the spread. This has meant that we have not had to go for an emergency approval for these vaccines. And others have had to do that. And that has meant that hundreds of thousands of doses have been given, as your friends in the US. They are even receiving their second doses now. And we can learn from their experiences on all fronts, and we can benefit from it as Australians here.
Yeah, definitely. I think the media does a whole lot of good or bad, I think, in terms of educating us in the right and wrong. So I think this will be one of the goods and the rights that media can help
Absolutely.
us with.
Yes, not only media, all of us actually. And you were talking about that friend of yours who had concerns about the vaccine. I think the onus is on each one of us to reassure each other that, hey, listen, this is good for you, this is good for your family, this is good for your friend circle, and that win people over, saying,
I
listen,
think it all comes down to ultimately vaccines as a whole, because when children are not given their vaccines into their childhood,
yes,
we have the outbreak of the system where, if you're not vaccinated, no shot, no play sort of thing. So it's a preventative method. So I think with the COVID vaccine also, it's another preventative method so that we don't keep going through these lockdowns and kind of circulate around the same virus, and the virus also keep mutilating and becoming a new strain and again and again.
True, true. I would like to pick on just one point though. So, no vaccine, no play. The good news is Australia is not taking this approach, and we have the possibility to be more open and more working with people to convince people. So our policy in Australia is not that. If that, yeah, no vaccine, no play. Nobody's going to be forced to take anything.
No, I meant in relation to the children's vaccines, that when we had the
yes,
campaign that, parents not wanting to get the jab for the children so that, they cannot go to childcare, they're putting everybody else at risk and put themselves at
yes,
risk and so on and so forth. So I think we
yes,
kind of go in the same path of those vaccines in this vaccine as well.
yes, yes. But in the case of adults, it's different. If somebody has hesitation, somebody has serious doubts, then their employer can't force them to do it, and so on and so forth. So that's why the onus is more on us as a community of peers to talk to each other and bring everybody on board together.
So together.
Yeah.
And another question, do you think the vaccine will be available to the children or strictly adults?
Yes, that's a question. So at the moment, all the research and the data that we have, with on the basis of which all these decisions are made, are are related to and are about adults, those who are more than 18 years old. Now that there has been certainty that this vaccine is safe in adults, studies have begun in those under 18, those under 16. And as these studies roll out, as data start emerging, I think we will get insights which allow us to make those decisions. I would expect in the next 3 months to 4 months that we will have information about what benefits, what safety do kids have when it comes to these vaccines. So far, we don't know.
Yeah. I have a personal question for you. So, COVID is related to the influenza virus and so forth, coming from the same family, I believe. And influenza is a ongoing pandemic. It's a silent pandemic that we all go through, but not to such a big extent. So, how much do we know about the COVID's potential in the future?
So just for the science of it, they come from different families. So so coronavirus is part of the coronaviridae family, and flu viruses are part of the fluvidae family. Different set of viruses. Both have one thing in common: they spread through the respiratory route, and that's where they, the respiratory tract they enter. So about the flu virus and the family of flu viruses and how they spread and so on and so forth. It's not a pandemic, it's a seasonal outbreaks is what we see. We all know quite a lot about the coronavirus family also, by the way, and but we don't know enough whether this particular strain of the coronavirus is something that we are going to be living with forever, or whether it's going to be an annual affair, or whether there are going to be ebbs and flows. It's too soon to say with certainty, but let's see how it goes. Everybody's watching it very carefully.
So I think there will be a lot of research and grants approved for the research so that we have a more clearer picture of COVID-19.
Totally. And had it not been the case, we wouldn't have been able to get so quickly, so far, and rolling out vaccines all over the world.
Yeah. So what else can you give us in overall picture of COVID so far in the last 18 months, what we've been through and what we have achieved, and now coming on to the vaccines? What words of advice can you give the public?
I would repeat what I remember you said the last time we spoke. We've worked hard as Australians. We've worked hard as a community to keep the virus at bay. We followed the social distancing measures, the hand washing. We've been very good with lockdowns, uh, following the rules. We are not out of the woods yet. We still have to keep on doing these good things. Wear the masks where social distancing is not possible. If we carry on
The
doing it till
recent 5-day lockdown shows us that we are not out of the woods at all.
precisely, and till we have the whole country vaccinated, till we have good scientific evidence which tells us that we are now fine, we have to hold it down. Otherwise, all the good work of the last 12 months, yeah, that would be such a waste, isn't it?
I don't think anyone wants that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, thank you for giving us a bit of a insight into the vaccines and the new strain of from UK. Oh, they call it the UK strain. I don't know why, but but yeah, it seems a bit odd. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope the general public keep doing what they're doing and be more open-minded towards the vaccines for their benefit as well as their families'
Absolutely.
benefit. So it's almost 32 minutes already, and I can't believe it's gone that fast. So thank
No,
you
it's been a
again.
pleasure. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you. Thanks
It
for
was
having
lovely
me.
having you for part 1 and part 2 of the COVID series. So I'm sure we will see you soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening. And the general public, after the lockdown, I think you guys all know that we're not out of the woods yet. So keep on fighting through it. Be patient. We are not alone. We are doing this together. So let's keep on doing it together and let's keep safe. I know it seems like such a burden to be told that we can't go out all of a sudden, or we can't have a party, or having to reschedule things on at the last minute. I know a lot of people on Valentine's Day had to reschedule their weddings and plans and all that, but is it not better than having a healthy lifestyle? Is it not better than being healthy and then going in for months and months of lockdown? So think, be patient, be careful, and stay safe, and have a lovely night. Good night, everybody.